In this video, we will look at Python input and output, and that is to say how to take user inputs from the user and use them in our program to make it interactive. So let us go straight into Python and see how we can do that. Let us create a Python file for the session. So to new and then to Python. And then let's first create a new variable. Let's just set this one to code base. And then try to greet the person. So let us a greeting to the channel. So let's call a variable greet equal to, then we can use the plus symbol for what we call string concatenation to add two or more strings together. So we can say hello, then I will intentionally leave a space after the hello, because if I don't leave the space and I print it, it will all come out as one. So hello plus and then plus name. So in this line 3, we are adding whatever name is to hello, and then we want to print that one to terminal. So we quickly go ahead and then print greet, and then right click, run our code, and let me bring this one up a little. We see hello code base, but not like we're expecting. The two are together, so we have to intentionally leave a space in front of the hello, and in that case when we run it, it will separate it with a space for us. So what if we don't want to hard code this name here all the time, but make it dynamic for the user to input their name? So in that case, we introduce ourselves to a new function called the input function, which is used to take inputs at the terminal. Here, we cannot type in the terminal, but if we use the input function, we can do some typing there and ask for data from the user. So in here, what we do is we put a string there that will be some descriptive text to the user for the user to know what to do. So you can say not input, rather enter your name, and then I'll format it a little. So enter your name, and in that case, when we enter any name, it will take this one, take the input, assign it to the name variable, and then add it to this hello statement inside greet, and then print it to the console or the terminal for us. So let us run our program and see. So you see that instead of process finish with exit code 0 like we always see, now we have a prompt here that says enter your name. When I click in, I can type in anything I want to type, and so that is how we take input from the user. So if I go ahead and type Tommy, it now says hello Tommy. And if we run again and then input the old one that we did, code base, it says hello code base. So by this input function, we make our program interactive and then take input from the user to use in our program. Okay, so let's just work around things and then build a small terminal calculator that will take input from the user and then calculate the values for us. So I'll go ahead and select all and delete, and then here we will say num1, which is to signify the first number, equal to input, and then in here I would say first number. So the user will type the first number, and then I'll come again and I'll take the second number, And then we can say result equal to, then we add num1 plus num2. And then as usual, we print it to the terminal for us to see the result. So let us run our code and see. It asks us for the first number, let me input 5, and then the second number then to be 4. Something else is happening. Instead of 9, we are getting 54. And that is because the default output of this input function is a string. And we can verify that by first printing the type. We are familiar with this thing from the previous tutorial, the type of either of the variables. So let's say num2. Let's print the type of num2 and then comment out this line 8. The shortcut I'm using to comment is the control and the question mark key. So if I run user input, of course it will ask for my first number, input 4 and then 6. And then it displays a class of string. But we know from the code we just erased that when we use the plus symbol on strings, it will concatenate them. It will add the first one to the other one and then display it as a string. So what we can do, in fact, there are more than one ways to do things in programming, but we do what we call type conversion. We can convert all the types here to the variables here to integers, and then we can now add them as integers. So in front of the input, I'll put int. That means convert whatever that is coming in the input function to an integer, and I'll close the bracket at the end. And I'll do the same for num2 also. And I'll close the bracket at the end. So now when we uncomment this side and then run our code, we should see what we were expecting to see. So 7 now and then 2, and then the answer now is 9. And if we go ahead and then print the type of any of the variables after the conversion, we will see that it is actually an integer. And I've not introduced you to this before, but once you first of all right click on a file and run it, the second time or any other time you can come to the top here and click this green button up here to run it also. So it's asking for the first number, let me put 6 and then 4, and then it gets 10, but another 4 is here. Oh, okay, we are trying to print the type, but I forgot to bring the type. So let me bring the type in. So type, and then run it again. First number 5, second number 6. And then now it tells us that the class is an integer. So that is how we take input from the user. And now let's look at the various ways that we can output results also onto our terminal. We'll quickly go back to the previous sample of that to see how we can output stuff. So the name was an input, then your name, and then we declare the greet to be hello, and an intentional space, then plus name. The first one we saw it, so we just print greet and then it works. It's one of the ways to display things to our terminal, because if you run it and then we enter our name, it will work. So Tommy, and then hello Tommy. But it happens to be that we can, instead of writing this greet function, this greet variable before we bring it to the print function, we can get rid of this by cutting it and then pasting it directly into the print function. and then it will also work as expected. So if we go ahead and run our code, it will still work as we expect it to. So this is the first way to intentionally put spaces in here inside your string, or you can also try concatenate the space itself by adding another plus like this and then putting an empty space in between them. And in that case, you delete the space after the hello, and it will also work that way. So we can use the concatenation to display multiple things. Like if you want to include multiple variables in your output, that is how one of the ways you do it. Intentionally put the plus symbol and then the spaces there anytime you have to insert things. So if I run it again like this, it will still bring the space. Even though I've deleted it from here, I've intentionally added it here. So this is one of the way to do it. I'll comment this one and then I will write another print statement. And this time around, I will bring the hello, of course. And then I'll bring a comma after the hello, and I'll bring the variable name. This is also another way of displaying things to the terminal. But in this case, let us run it and see what will happen, because I intentionally ignored the space after the hello. But if we type our name, we see that the space is added automatically for us. So that is one advantage of this style of displaying things to the terminal. We don't have to intentionally put spaces after the words to separate them like we want them to be. We can simply separate them with commas, and then the spaces will be added automatically by Python for us. So that is one of the advantages of this method. And if there are more than one, we can of course add them. So if we ask the user for their hobby and then we take it also as an input, so your hobby, and then we can bring a comma and then bring another string, and you like, instead of bringing an intentional space, I'll skip again and then I'll put hobby here. Oh, I misspelled hobby up here. Okay, so let us run this one and see what will happen. So it's asking for my name. Oh, my T didn't come. Oh, what is happening? Okay, I'll type it again. And it's asking for the hobby, so the hobby will be coding. And then you see that there is no spaces here after the like and co, but it's automatically inserted them and added the spaces there. So that is one advantage of this style of outputting to the terminal, so that we don't have to intentionally be typing code and all that. We might forget at some point in time, so this one comes in handy. And there's also another method, the last one that we look at for today. It's by the use of what we call formatted strings or F strings. So once again, the print statement. And in here, we humans probably are used to typing things like we do in some text editors, or like Microsoft Word or Notebook, anything like that that allows us to type text. So we want to type something like this, like hello, and then the name that I will probably put into Tommy, and you like coding, and then the flexibility to type something like this. So that is where F strings come in handy, and we declare F strings just by putting lowercase f in front of the string. So F comes before the first opening quote, and then that will be an F string. So let me capitalize this. Is just something I like to do. So inside an F string, let me delete this one because this is where we will add take the user input. Inside an F string, wherever we want a variable to be, you put this open and close curly brackets if you want it. So this curly bracket will be the placeholder for the function, or the not the function but the variable that we want to insert at that particular place. So let me put here name, and then this place is where we wanted to insert the coding. So another set of curly brackets, and then we put the hobby here. And in this case, if we run our program, it's asking for the name, to Tom, just to, and then the hobby is, let's say, reading. You will see that it's printed out, hello Tom, and you like reading. And we had that flexibility of typing it and leaving the spaces just like we would do in a normal text editor. But because of the F in front here converting it to an F string, we have that flexibility of inserting the variables in here as placeholders, and then whenever we type it, it replaces it in there. And so these are some of the ways we display things to our terminal. There are other ways that we will explore as we move forward. So thank you for your time today, and I'll see you in the next video.